online, on the TuneIn app, and on your smart speaker. Play Shock Radio.
This is Shock
News.
Hello, welcome. This is the Shock News podcast. I'm Alfie Garner, today joined by Buckingham-Reed and Will Phillips. We're talking all the big stories happening in the Northwest and in Greater Manchester. Hello to both of you, how are we feeling?
Yeah, good. I think we've got a lot to talk about, got a lot to get through, as per.
Plenty to talk about. Let's start then back home. Let's start at home, it always makes sense, and talk about the potential for tram strikes over the festive season. Hundreds of Metrolink drivers are being balloted at the moment over possible strike action due to concerns for their shift patterns and quote-unquote fatigue from the trade union. That's Unite the Union. They're balloting their drivers at the moment and the warning of a likely tram chaos. What does this mean when it comes to people who either get the tram in as a commuter to university or even just for the day? We have to remember it's not only the city centre, it goes to the Trafford Centre, it goes to the airport. There's plenty of places. What does this actually mean?
Obviously, trams make up a large chunk of the public transport around Manchester. For those of us who are University of Salford students, you go to Media City. There is a tram stop there, so that would probably be affected by these strikes. Obviously, for those going into the city as well from commuting from Manchester into Media City, that would be greatly affected. On top of that, there's trams all the going to Bury, Altrincham, all the commuter towns around Manchester that would obviously be affected. So I think it would have quite a large impact on the commuter.
I think we're talking about how it's going to affect Christmas time as well, and sort of that festive period. There's a much higher sort of rate of people coming in and out of the city, even from sort of the greater Manchester areas, because these trams stretch out to places like Altrincham, where people are going to come in, want to see the markets, and this could, be a massive knock on the amount of people coming into the city and actually shopping over the Christmas period and visiting the markets as well.
Yeah, so if these strikes were to go ahead, they would start on the 4th of December, I think. And it would last until it started. I think the first bout of action would be about 3 days. At the moment, it's looking like 320 employees would be on strike. That's how many are employed by the operator who operated on Transport for Greater Manchester's behalf. It would coincide with the Manchester Christmas markets. That's happening across Manchester this year, not just the two key hotspots, especially in Piccadilly Gardens. It's happening across, so it would affect all of it. Currently, according to the union, the drivers' shift patterns mean that they have to work 450 hours over a 12-week period. And the shift patterns mean that they're working 50 hours on, getting 2-3 days rest, and then back on 50 hours. So it's understandable that this would just cause fatigue, but also potentially burnout. It would cause tiredness, which, if you're driving a tram, you don't want your driver to be tired. They could crash, they could sort of cause an accident. If this strike was to go ahead, what do you think the reaction from Transport for Greater Manchester, and also the operator, but also from the communities around, especially key tram stops?
Well, I think, we've seen how over the past year, 2 years or so, there's been sort of an increased amount of accidents and risks with the tram. I think that must have been a sign, at that point, that we have to look after our tram drivers who keep the city moving in a way. A lot of the central transport, like you said, is massively sort of like taken over by trams.
It's been built around trams for
and if they don't look after the tram drivers, which should be the number one port of call, is to look after them, make sure that their shift patterns and listen to them, and this should hopefully open their ears to sort of hearing what they have to say, and hopefully be able to negotiate a bit of that shift pattern and negotiating them a better deal for working.
I do think Unite the Union will come into this strike with a bit of optimism, considering that they similarly had bus strikes at parts of October and September, and they were able to agree a deal there. So that should give them some motivation to stick it out and try and reach a deal.
And we were talking about the bus strike. It's been, for many, a summer of chaos when it comes to the public transport system in Manchester. It's now looking like it's going to be a winter of chaos. Is it going to be a case that these strikes are going to be prolonged until a decent settlement is reached across the main parts of the B network, but also the tram network and the greater public transport network in Manchester and Greater Manchester?
I mean, I'd say while we can see that happening, we've known that these are wanted to be fixed. The union want to work and want to get a deal for the drivers, like we saw with the buses. And there's probably hope from both sides to get a deal done as soon as possible and be back on as soon as, hopefully maybe to stop these strikes even happening, but to definitely not prolong them and not push them over the Christmas period.
I think the BNet will prioritise and try and make sure these strikes are not taking place, especially over time of Christmas markets. Like you said earlier, Christmas markets brings in a lot of shopping, brings in a lot of economy for Manchester, so they'll be trying to make sure that it doesn't affect that too greatly. So I think it's likely they will.
It's also the surrounding shops. It's not only the markets. It's in Piccadilly Gardens. Right next door is the Arndale Centre. The Arndale will be hoping that this will bring in more customers for them. It'll be hoping that the smaller shops that operate around Piccadilly Gardens will be hoping for some of that extra income. A lot of the bars and the clubs around there will also be hoping for this sort of income from these people coming from the markets.
You talk about Christmas shopping hotspots. On top of that, the Trafford Centre, another one that is directly most people get there via tram because of its location. So another massive hotspot that will probably be blocked out because of these strikes.
100%. Well, we've got statements from TFGM and also the operator. Danny Vaughan is the chief network officer. He said they are aware of that Unite are balancing its drivers. They continue to say this is linked directly to discussions regarding rosters not to pay. They also added that they are meeting both CAM, the operator, and Unite this week to understand all the issues and any concerns in more detail, and are keen to work with both parties. Damien Chavez is the managing director of Kilias Ami Metrolink Operate It. They've said we've received the notice of the ballot. They also added that our rosters align with safety standards and are committed to making ongoing sustainable improvements to their benefit for our drivers. We see these statements come out when there's a risk of strike action and these things. Do you think it would make a massive difference, these sort of statements? Do you think the talks as well with TFGM, Unite and CAM will make a difference, or do you think there's still that potential for that strike action in December?
I think they will be hoping it will make a difference, and they will be hoping to reach a deal, because the strikes themselves, they will not be working for that period. Obviously, the network, it's in their best interest to make sure that trams are running. So I think it's likely they will be both keen to get a deal. So statements like that, I think, will have a positive effect.
And we'll also see this regarding B-Network buses. So when London had their bout of summer strikes on the tube, all that traffic flow didn't just go it went onto the bus. Do you think the B-Network could handle a massive influx of passenger usage? Do you think they're well equipped enough to deal with this issue?
I think it's another problem, and one that maybe hasn't been highlighted as much, that this actually doesn't just affect the amount of people coming in and out, but it affects the other services which run alongside on the B network. So it could, see a massive overhaul on those systems, and it's definitely a question to be asking whether they can handle it or not.
Well, if you want to read more into this situation, there is an article written by me on the Shock News website. Just go to shockradio.co.uk/news, or if you're watching on YouTube, there should be a little iCard popping up now. Let's move on to the next story. This is the Renters' Rights Act. It's just passing through Parliament. Only passed in the last week or so. Millions of tenants across the UK will now be affected by new laws coming into force through the Act. It received royal assent this week, and it secures a fairer future for 11 million private renters. It delivers on the government's plan for change manifesto commitment. What do you think? There's plenty in this Act that we can go through, and we will go through. What is going to be the main issue within this Act that a lot of people will really like and really think, actually, this is really helpful for me?
I believe the abolition of no-fault evictions will go down very well with people across the country, because obviously that was something that Labour campaigned on to get rid of that, and a lot of people will have stories where they have been evicted without a fault, and taking that ability away from landlords, I think, will have a very positive effect on Labour, because people will be glad they have made good on that promise.
And just in terms of numbers on that, there was 11,000 households in England last year who faced evictions at the behest of Section 21 no-fault evictions, and I think that is what people will be looking at. There's 11 million people which will be affected by this, and last year it was 11,000 households which were evicted under this just one specific part of the Act. So I think we should look at this as a massive impact and a big success, actually, to get this through Parliament.
Well, there's many different changes that will come in force, mainly the abolishment of no-fault evictions. There's loads more a pet-friendly policy, which means that landlords can no longer say no if you want to bring a pet without having a good reason. Under the Act, renters have strengthened rights now. Under the section of the Act, there's also now a ban on bidding wars. This is a big part of the Act. The Act will end the practice of rental bidding wars, where landlords can maximise the rent they receive. So they basically have a cap now on how much rent they can charge to prevent different groups wanting the same house. They can't accept more than the initial rent advertised, and they are prohibited from asking or accepting offers above. There's also rent increases part and paying up front. Tenants should be asked to pay, prior to the Act, they can be asked to pay rent in advance, and now they can only ask for a month's rent. And then the big one around here, around Greater Manchester, is Arab's Law. It's been brought in for private rented sector for the first time. It will set a clear expectation now on the timeframes in which landlords can, in the private sector, take action to make sure a house is safe. This is a big story, especially within the local community, because Arab Isaac, who was 2 years old, died after being exposed to mould in a Rochdale home back in 2020. You may or may not remember that. His father repeatedly raised the issue with the Borough-wide Housing Association, but no action was taken. Big part of this, because in this case, mould poisoning, for a 2-year-old, that is fatal. For someone who hasn't got an immune system that's fully developed, it is fatal.
Yeah, I think people remember it, the completely tragic story, and I think it hooked a lot of the Greater Manchester community and brought them together on this issue. And now I feel like it's finally come through to the nation that we can actually say this is what's been done about it, and it's definitely it's just a terribly tragic story, and hopefully we won't see another story because of this.
Obviously, it's very relevant to the local community happening in Rochdale, so I think as well it will be nice for the community to know that has been resolved and to some extent that something's been done about it, and now we can move forward.
And it's also it's a really good thing for people who may feel powerless compared to their landlords. You know, landlords tend to feel like they have a lot of power. Thankfully, some of this should be changing because of the abolishment of no-fault evictions. Maybe it will give people who are tenants, especially low-income tenants, who really do have to decide between maybe...
It's just that safety barrier,
yeah.
that just little increased support, a little just security, whereas people for so long felt like they've got no security. I mean, we even see this in sort of student accommodations, there's stories and stories, people who feel like they've got landlords which don't have their back, and now they can at least feel like the law has their back on this.
And now it is set in stone, they have to do it. It's about the time frame now. It's not about actually completing the action, so it's a time frame on when they have to do it by. There's also more about ending fixed term tenancies as well. You have 2 months notice now before you can end your tenancy. Let's move on to a bit of a health startling warning for a lot of people. It comes after a Greater Manchester mum has passed away after being injected with a £20 skinny jab. Someone has been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter, and the mum's daughters are now calling on a crackdown on the sale of unlicensed weight loss drugs. These have come into fruition with Monjaro, especially over the last year and a half, as more and more people will take it, especially as starts to be able, it's available now on the NHS under a scheme. This is really, really important for a lot of people. A lot of people can't sort of physically lose weight without this assistance. Do you think there will be some good that comes out of this horrific death?
Look, the health minister said last year that it would be a very important thing for our economy and the wider health. This isn't a case of the NHS's problem. This is a problem which happened, a very tragic story with an illegal version of the drug which was taken and used. And what can happen about this is it's terribly sad, and it just should come as a warning, I think, for people that we need to really look at these. I think our government and the health minister should look at this and make sure these aren't so easily available on the market or the black market or anything like that. But yeah, terribly tragic story, and I think it's definitely something which is going to take some inquiry on it.
No, obviously it's a devastating thing to happen, and I think there will have to be an investigation into this black market almost of these drugs to help you get skinny, because it's an issue that's obviously plaguing a lot of people, and the NHS has those schemes available, but maybe they're not encompassing enough for some people, because she was not eligible to get on the NHS scheme, which is why she had to go through these black market methods, and obviously the consequences of that have been very dire.
Yeah, we will say that a police investigation is currently underway with, as we said, one person being arrested. This is on suspicion of manslaughter, another on suspicion of supplying a controlled substance. So there is at least potentially some justice for this family who have been through a tragic death. Karen McGonigal, who is from Salford, he died earlier this year, just aged 53 and days after she was administered a dose of this drug. Her family have become the first family in the UK to speak publicly about the death, linked to fake weight loss jabs, and they have begged others not to pay for them, saying it's really not worth it. It also raises this issue of the black market, not only of sort of jabs, but also of different products. We've seen recently of black market toys being sold to kids. The UK people within safety standards are calling for the UK government to make a stand against sort of black market toys that can be really dangerous to kids as well. So hopefully there will be some good out of this, and we can hopefully see this in the future. Let's move on to our second to last story about Manchester Pride. It's gone bust over the last week with thousands owed in unpaid fees. It follows a Manchester Pride this year which saw the likes of Alexander perform. He would have been paid far in advance, but these smaller artists who don't have that negotiating power hasn't. What do you think this means, first of all, for the wider Manchester community, but also the LGBT community within Manchester?
I mean, it's really, it's going to be tough it's going to take a hit on the massive queer community here in Manchester. You know, we have such great spaces, such great performers around the city, and I'm sure a lot of them, with the offer to work and perform at Pride, would have taken it for free and would have taken the chance to get on the stage and do what they love and do what they do best. And people came out for it, and people bought tickets, people paid money for this, and I think it's just massively going to be a blow and disappointing for both the queer community and all of the people who are working for Pride, performing at Pride, putting on events, you know, putting together stages and then performing on those stages. I think it's just been a massive hit for the community.
Yeah, as Noah says, it's a devastating loss, and the only hope now is that something can come in and fill its space to give, you know, queer people a something like that, an event like that, to really give them something to look forward to, a safe space for them to come and get together. So the hope is now that just something can come.
And it's crazy that a city like Manchester won't be able to put something on
one
like
of the biggest
this.
hubs for LGBTQ people in the UK.
Exactly. So I feel like we're going to hopefully have some sort of push come together on this, and I think the council have already spoken about you know, being able to put something on for Pride.
And we've seen this before. Liverpool Pride had these issues earlier this year. They've now been rectified, and Liverpool Pride does exist again. Potentially this is something that we see with Manchester. Council could provide support. If not, there is other events happening around Greater Manchester. Salford Pride has said they would happily take anyone who wants to feel at home again in Salford. That happens a few weeks before here on Peel Park. So a sad loss for a lot of people in the community, but also hopefully some diversity when it comes to more Pride events as well. And Will, you've done some writing this week, haven't you?
Yes, I have. So, as many may know, we're coming up to 100 years of Salford. And in that time, we have had some of the biggest names, celebrities, political activists, come from our city. As you can see here, I've written an article that is now available on the Shock News website that you can read, and it goes through some of the biggest names that have come from our city. Right there, we've got Jason Manford. So many might know he's from Salford, but there's definitely a few names on there that you might not be aware of, such as Benedict Wong, a star of the MCU. He a big part of the Doctor Strange franchise, and there's a few more names on there, as you can see. Christopher Eccleston, Doctor Who comes from our city.
Incredible, isn't it? The amount of people from Salford who wouldn't think, who live in such a well brought up life who now live in Hollywood, for example.
When I read this, a lot of these, I'd say probably more than half, I had no idea they had any connection to Salford.
Oscar award-winning actor Ben Kingsley. He was born in Yorkshire, but as I said in there, he moved to Pendlebury when he was very young. He grew up here, and
lots of many cool names, and I think we had many people actually even from here might have no idea, so definitely worth reading.
And also one at the bottom which we've currently lost is Emmeline Pankhurst, a really big figure, especially around health, and that's such an important person to remember who just comes from around our local area. So if you want to read that, that's available on the Shock News website, and all the links from today are available on the YouTube description. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you, it's been good.
It's been great to have you. That's been the Shock News podcast with Alfie Garner, Noah Buckingham-Reed and Will Phillips. This week has been produced by Elliot, Hartley. A massive thank you as well to Ben Fiddimore, who's been tech manager. If you've got a story that you'd like to share with us, give us a contact on WhatsApp 07729 720 708, or give us an email hello@shockradio.co.uk, and we'll see you next week.